is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fight Dialogue. My name is Tim, and here we are again. We got another live chat this week. This is probably the first time I've ever done two live chats within the same week. There's a good reason for that. If you've watched a live chat before, it's something that I really only do when the house is empty, no kids, no other people in the house making noise. It's just me today. Also, another variable, I usually work Saturdays, and today I was able to get off of work. So it is an extreme rarity that I can do this on a Saturday when everybody else has off. So take advantage of it now. Fill up the chat, ask whatever questions you're gonna ask, and we're gonna go over some other stuff today. We're gonna talk about the UFC card that's taking place tonight. I want to talk about ONE FC because they have a ton of events that are coming up within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and yeah, I definitely want to talk about that because for a long time ONE FC wasn't doing any events whatsoever, and I want to focus on them again because they're an excellent fight organization. We got the Crimson Flash here. What's up, Crimson? So yeah, just got out of jiu-jitsu class, ate lunch, came home, and then found out that I did not have to work today. So that is an awesome feeling. I mean, the only thing that even comes close to that is when you wake up for school one day and there's snow everywhere and you get a snow day. So that's kind of what it feels like right now. So we are celebrating with a live chat. So drop your questions. As always, I try my best to get to everybody's question. I'll answer your questions for free. And we do about an hour stream usually. So I'll be getting to all your questions. If you want to help support the channel or make sure that I answer your question first, you can always drop a super chat. Excuse me. Those are definitely not something I expect of anybody, but it's something that is very much appreciated and helps support the channel. So, like I was saying, we're going to talk about ONE FC and the UFC. The UFC has an event tonight that I really would like to talk about here. I have the tab open right now. So if you're out of the loop, Curtis Blaydes tested positive for coronavirus, so he will not be fighting Derek Lewis tonight, unfortunately. And honestly, that looked like probably the best fight potentially on the card. But I mean, we'll see what happens because I always seem to be surprised by some of the prelims here. Going through it right now. I'm really excited about this guy Spike Carlyle. He's really exciting. He lost his last fight against Quarantillo, but man, he's so dangerous in that first round. Very similar to Conor McGregor in that regard. Very dangerous in the first round, and then as the fight progresses, kind of tires out a little bit. But yeah, I think he was on the Contender Series, just absolutely demolished everybody. And I think he won his debut in the UFC, and then I think it was his second fight that he lost, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, now that Mr. Curtis Blaydes is out of the picture for tonight, by association, so is Derek Lewis. And now the main event is Anthony Smith versus Devin Johnson. And, I mean, shit happens, right? That's definitely not the main event that they wanted because that's not a main event. Those two fighters are not main event fighters. Anthony Smith, if you put him up against another big name, he kind of is. But by himself, oh man, there's not enough draw there. I mean, he had a good fight against Jones, and he hung in there for as long as he could against Glover Teixeira. But yeah, I don't know. Anthony Smith is a weird fighter because there's times where he just really surprises me and beats the crap out of like certain people that I didn't expect him to beat. And then And then he was definitely the favorite going in against Glover Teixeira, in my opinion. And I didn't expect him to beat Alexander Gustafsson, but maybe Gustafsson. That was the fight that initially retired Gustafsson, is when he fought Anthony Smith, and then he stayed out for a while, came back at heavyweight, and got submitted by Verdum. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just bad luck on Gustafsson's part, or if he really should, stay retired. But it's going to be a short night for anybody if you go to the ground with Verdum, especially if they take your back. He's definitely one of the best heavyweight jiu-jitsu competitors of all time. How about PFL? PFL picked up Verdum. They picked up Rory McDonald. Picked up a few really good fighters. It was unfortunate that they couldn't have a season this year due to the coronavirus. But, hey, they're coming back next year, and it should be a really excellent season. So go ahead, guys, drop your questions. It can be about anything and everything. I like to keep it to martial arts for the most part, but we can deviate a little bit and talk about random stuff. But I'll continue talking about this UFC card for now. Yeah, Devin Clark, I really don't know too much about him other than he's a wrestler. I've seen him fight before, but he's never really wowed me. He's never really impressed me that much. I believe he is coming off a win against another. I think he was a Contender Series fighter, and he beat him via decision. But before that, he really doesn't have any notable wins under his belt. This fight against Anthony Smith is definitely his toughest test to date. Anthony Smith is ranked number 6 currently. Devin Clark is not ranked at all. So, I mean, he's basically fighting 10 ranks above what he should be fighting at. Underneath, we got the co-main event, which is Takashi Sato versus Miguel Baeza. Miguel Baeza is very talented. Takashi Sato, I'm not too familiar with. The name actually rings a bell, but I can't remember ever watching him fight. Got a couple heavyweight fights on this card. Ashley Evans Smith, Kai Kamaka is always a good fighter. What's on the prelims here? Martin Day, Anderson Dos Santos, Gina Mazzani versus Rachel Ostovich. I'd like to see how Rachel Ostovich does in this fight. It's been a while that she's been out of the octagon. It's been a long time. See if she's got that cage rust. So we got that card. That prelims start at 4. I'll be watching that live, not at work for once, which will be really nice. Nice change of pace. And then beyond that, we got some good UFC cards, but I wanna look up ONE FC here. Now, I don't know if ONE FC has been watching my channel because they seem to have fixed one of the things that I complain about constantly, which is the fact that when you go into their events, let's see here, let me pull it up for you guys. So when you go into their events and you hover over it, there actually is all of them listed right there, at least up until December 18th. And then beyond that, Collision Course 2, as you see there, it just has a picture of the belt. That's usually what they have as the thumbnail for every event. Every event but the very next one. And they don't announce the very next event until a week before. I honestly have no idea how they promote these things and how people show up. I mean, I know they're not showing up now because of the virus, but when they were filling stadiums, how did they do it? Because they give no information on the card until right before it happens. And now, as you can see, we got 1, 2, 3 events that are actually posted, showing the full fight cards as well. And then the one that takes place on Christmas is unannounced, basically, for right now. But we got this one December 4th. That is a Friday. It's called Big Bang. I kind of like how they still name their fight cards, channeling pride there. But I like how they mix in kickboxing and Muay Thai fights too into their cards. I mean, now that Glory isn't doing anything anymore, ONE FC has kind of taken their place as like the premier, like mainstream kickboxing and Muay Thai organization to watch out for. And the main event on this card, the Big Bang, is Roman Kriklia versus Murat Agun. I'm not familiar with Murat Agun. He's from the Netherlands / Turkey. Well, he doesn't really look Turkish with that red hair of his, but who am I to judge? Roman, very good Ukrainian kickboxer. These are big dudes, light heavyweights. So that should be an awesome kickboxing match. I'm not sure if this fight will be taking place in a ring or a cage. See, that's always the interesting thing, and that's something that they also don't give too much information about. They're not too transparent about, is that you never know where the fight is going to take place. When I made that video about Khabib and his style of takedowns, a lot of his takedowns he gets off the fence. So it would have been interesting to see Khabib compete in ONE FC and see how he utilized the ring. I mean, there are some early fights of Khabib fighting in a ring when he fought for M1, but I'd like to see him with his skill set now, trying to get the takedown, because he really perfected that art of taking people down up against the fence when he went into the UFC. So I don't know if he really lands too many takedowns in the middle of the octagon now. But that's kind of what you have to do if you're fighting in a ring. You have to get those takedowns in the middle, because you can't really lean too much up against the ring or you'll fall through the ropes. I mean, you can lean up against the corner, but now you're kind of limited on, like, it's hard to get a single leg in the corner because you can't run the pipe and sit them down because you have no space over there. Because when you're cornered, you're like really cornered. Whether you're the guy on the inside or the outside. So it's pretty hard to get certain takedowns in the corner. So if you do it up against the ropes, you have a little bit more space to move side to side, but now the guy's falling straight through the ropes. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that ONE FC brings to the table in that regard. And I'm not 100% sure if I like it. I mean, it is interesting to see Muay Thai fights in a cage, but the MMA fights in the ring, I don't know if we're really gaining anything in terms of like excitement, you know. But Gary Tonin, who is the co-main event on the card, trains under John Danaher, Renzo Gracie, Tom DeBlas, one of the best grapplers of all time. Period. And he's been fighting MMA for quite some time now. He's undefeated, ran through everybody they've put in front of him. He's fighting a Japanese guy named Kiyomi Matsushima. And he's a fighter I've not heard of before. This is a featherweight fight, by the way. It's a fighter I've not really heard of before. But then again, I don't watch ONE FC as religiously as I do the UFC. But that's going to be interesting. I don't know what Koyomi brings to the table, but I know what Gary Tonin does. He uses aggressive boxing and kicks to get into range, and then he either takes you down or he drops down into a heel hook. And that's how he's won pretty much all of his fights so far. And I think his last fight was in a ring. The last time he fought in ONE FC was in a ring. And again, I don't know what this takes place in a cage or a ring, but I guess we'll find out. Marat Grigorian, I believe he was the Glory kickboxing champion. Absolute tank out of Armenia. And yeah, it should be interesting. Guys, can you hear me all right? I've been kind of chilling with the mic not as close to my face for this stream. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. If not, you know what? I'll just move it a little bit closer. Fuck it. All right, so we're filling up with some questions here. I'll answer some questions and then we can go back to the 1FC stuff. Laurent Bartok. It's an interesting name with a lot of little squigglies over the letters. I'm pretty sure in Irish it's called a fada. I don't know what it's called for other cultures though. But what do I think about Pluto getting smaller? I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not really a scientist, and if we're talking about the planet Pluto, I did not know it was getting smaller. I would assume it has something to do with the ice that's on Pluto, because Pluto's pretty far out there. I would imagine it's covered with ice. Is the ice melting? Is that why it's getting smaller? Please enlighten me, because now I am intrigued. Mean Canadian. You know, I've been to Canada several times, and I've never once met a mean Canadian. I go up to Wolfe Island, Ontario, in the St. Lawrence River there to go pike fishing. And it's a lot of fun. I go up there with my father-in-law. We rent a cottage on the island, and the people are always friendly, and it's good fishing. But anyway, Mean Canadian says, Conor versus Dustin, who do I have? I have Mr. Conor McGregor, to be honest with you. He's too precise, too accurate. He's Dustin Poirier's worst nightmare in some regards, in the striking aspect at least. Because Poirier, not only does he dwell there, but he excels in that dogfight, that brawl, and I should say technical brawl, because Dustin Poirier is very technical, but in those crazy firefights is where Dustin Poirier is best. But if you get into those crazy firefights with Conor, he's going to beat you with precision and accuracy and timing. And I think that's how he got him in the first fight, honestly. I think that's how he was able to put Dustin away with such a small shot. I talk about it all the time. It was to this day, it drives me nuts. I don't know how he did it. Not exactly, at least. He barely even grazed Dustin's. I think he caught him like right here, right behind the ear, and he didn't even catch him with like the big knuckle either. He caught him with like his pinky, because he threw like a hook, or if it, I don't know if it was a hook or a straight left, but he just barely caught him with the pinky there. And the majority of the punch that landed on Poirier kind of grazed off of Poirier's shoulder here, because Poirier was moving this way. I can't remember if he was slipping or like ducking, but the punch came in like this, grazed off his shoulder a little bit, and then caught him, just clipped him right by the ear like that. And it completely screwed up his equilibrium, and he dropped. And I've never seen such a small little shot like that do so much destruction. So I think in the stand-up department, Conor definitely has all the advantages. Not that Dustin can't hold his own and he can't catch Conor, but I think on paper Conor is the better striker. Now, if this fight somehow gets to the ground, Poirier should win it. But Conor's takedown defense is really underrated. And Poirier isn't exactly known for his takedown offense. So that's why I think Conor McGregor will win. Should be an excellent fight, though. I'm really excited for it. There we go. Francesco Genovese, good to see you again, sir. Who do you got between Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev? Will the hype train continue to run, or will it be derailed by Rocky? Did speak about this a little bit on the previous shows, but now we're getting close to it, right? Now the fight is almost upon us. Man, within 6 months, this guy went from absolutely nobody to one of the most hyped fighters in history. Definitely Rookie of the Year award goes to Chimaev. And he's done some impressive stuff. He's taken out some really tough guys very quickly and in quick succession too. I think there was one point where he had two fights within like 14 days of each other, something like that. And what he did to Meerschaert was just absolutely brutal. And Meerschaert was the bigger guy too, and he's known for being pretty tough. So Chimaev, he's got the hands, he's got the wrestling. I'm not 100% sure what his submission game looks like. I know he has submission wins on his record, but I don't know if he's like a wizard on the ground like Khabib is, because that's the comparison that's being made, right? Is his style is very close to what Khabib does. So I don't know if he's quite there in terms of his sambo and jiu-jitsu skills, but he's very good. He's very, 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 very good. And Leon Edwards is one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC right now, in all of fighting right now. It's a wonder he hasn't gotten his title shot yet. And I know there's been some back and forth between him and the UFC, and the coronavirus kind of screwed things up for him too, because he was scheduled to fight somebody towards the start of all this, and it got canceled because of the virus. And then he couldn't find a fight for a while. But I love Leon Edwards, man. He's so good. He's so well-rounded. And it's that well-roundedness that is such it's such a big deal in MMA. When you look at the most dominant champions in all of UFC and MMA history, it's the guys who are the most well-rounded, I think, who end up being the more dominant champions. Daniel Cormier is extremely well-rounded, especially for a heavyweight. He's got good wrestling, good knowledge of submissions. Doesn't exactly use them himself, but he's got excellent knowledge. And he's got excellent kickboxing. John Jones, another perfect example. Dangerous on the feet, dangerous on the ground. George St. Pierre, probably the epitome of well-roundedness, you know? It's the guys that are the jack of all trades, master of none, that seem to do well. Because, yeah, when you go up against a jiu-jitsu guy, a jiu-jitsu ace, you're going to run into problems if you go to the ground with them. But you always have another option. You always have a backup plan. If you're well-rounded enough, you never at any point have to be like, oh, I have to keep this fight standing, you know? Because although it would be in my best interest to keep a fight standing, if it goes to the ground, I know I can hold my own. So it makes you more free with your movements. It makes you commit more to your strikes. Whereas Conor, you know, if Conor is facing an excellent grappler, the entire game plan is based around, do not let this guy take me down. If this guy takes me down, I'm screwed. I need to get back to my feet. But if Conor was more well-rounded, I feel like his strikes would come more fluidly when he's facing guys. I think that's one of his problems when he faced Khabib, is that he was so, not nervous, but so, and he was anticipating that takedown that it kind of stifled his actual offense. So back to what I was saying, Leon Edwards is extremely well-rounded, one of the most well-rounded fighters right now, and he's been fighting top-level competition for a fucking while, guys. I mean, he fought Kamaru Usman to a decision.
He beat Cowboy. He beat the brakes off of Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson just looked like shit against him, quite frankly. And yeah, so it's definitely Chimaev's biggest test to date. So with that being said, if Chimaev loses to Leon Edwards, I don't think it's going to derail the hype train. I think it'll definitely slow it down, though. I personally have Leon Edwards winning that fight by decision. By decision. Okay. More questions. Justin versus Masvidal. Is that fight being rumored? Because that is interesting if it is. Justin versus Masvidal. Masvidal is definitely the bigger fighter. I mean, he's made 145 before, or 155, sorry. But Justin typically keeps it at 155. I don't know if Justin's ever fought at 170. Maybe he did in his very early career. But yeah, I got Masvidal for that, man. Masvidal can choke the shit out of him if he gets it to the ground. Francesco Genovese says, I predict a head kick knockout by Edwards. I don't know about knockout, but I definitely see Leon Edwards winning. Johnny Utah. Who the fuck is that guy? Well, I don't know. Who are we talking about? Talking about me? Because, yeah, I'm definitely not anyone special. I'm just a fan of the sport, talking about the sport. If we're talking about Conor McGregor, y'all forget about Conor McGregor. I think Conor McGregor will be back in the title picture if he beats Dustin. So I think I got through a lot of the questions here. Hey guys, I got 6 guys watching right now. Only 2 likes. You're killing me. I need more likes. Hit that like button, folks, and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. So back to ONE FC. Let's take a look at this not roster. Let's take a look at this lineup, this roadmap, if you will. How about this guy? I want to look at this guy. I believe they are heavyweights. Yes, heavyweights. Amir Alakbara from Iran versus Islam Abbasov. Tell me that guy doesn't look like a young Andre the Giant. That dude is terrifying. Let's click on him. Is he going to pop up? I want to see the rest of his body. Dude, that guy is absolutely terrifying. Height, 185 centimeters. Damn you, metric system. I refuse to learn you. Can somebody tell me how many inches that is? How tall is he? He doesn't look like a very tall heavyweight. He looks like he's probably a very stocky heavyweight. 185 centimeters. Does anybody know? Does anybody know? Oh, you guys are going to make me actually look it up? You're killing me. You're killing me. All right. What do I type in? 185 centimeters converted. 185 centimeters is 6 foot tall. 6 feet, 0 inches. Interesting. So yeah, he's not the biggest of heavyweights, but he's pretty big. He's up there. I got too many tabs open right now. All right. Let's look at some of the other events coming up for ONE FC. The Big Bang 2. I don't know why they do like 2 events with the same name, one after another. Because the one we were just looking at was the Big Bang 1. This is the Big Bang 2. Takes place a week later, December 11th, Friday. Taiko Nato. Taiki Nato. Taiki Nato? I'm not Japanese. I'm sorry. Versus Jonathan Haggerty. I think Jonathan Haggerty is one of the best fighters in ONE FC right now. One of the best Muay Thai fighters. He became champion. I forget who he beat, but I do think he just Did he lose? I think he lost. Yeah, I don't think this is a title fight. This is a non-title main event. So yeah, I think he lost his title and this is his fight back. But some of the best elbows in the sport right now. Just constantly spinning into those elbows, throwing like these tomahawk downward elbows. Fucking incredible to watch. And then we got another excellent boxer here, Nikki Holskin. Nikki Holskin versus Elliot Compton. Not familiar with Elliot Compton, but Nikki Holskin is a beast. Absolute beast. Masoud Safari? He's from Iran. Versus Anderson Silva. Okay, so ONE FC has a guy named Anderson Silva, absolutely no relation to the Anderson Silva. He's from Brazil and he fights MMA. How bad does that suck for that guy? That's like me going into a jiu-jitsu competition being named Gordon Ryan. Like, everybody's going to think I'm the Gordon Ryan. And then when they see me, they're just like, you're not Gordon Ryan. It must be so weird. I mean, he fights at a higher level now. It was probably more awkward when he was in the regionals. And you see the name Anderson Silva pop up in the regionals, and you're like, what the fuck? Raid Opachik. Raid Rade. Man. Eastern European names. He looks like a Chris Weidman, doesn't he? He looks like a Serbian Chris Weidman. Anyways, let's look at the next one. Collision Course. Who do we have? Gayunga Dao versus Rodlek PK. Sanchai Muay Thai Gym. So in case you didn't know, fighters in Thailand, they changed their last name to reflect the gym that they train at. I guess like as an homage to their gym, to kind of pay respect and like it's like a group thing, you know? It's like everybody from that gym does the same thing. I don't know if they legally changed their last name or if that's just like their nickname or something. Because I would imagine Thai people have actual last names because not all of them fight Muay Thai. So what is your last name before you fight Muay Thai? But yeah, Gayunga Dao, the champion, bantamweight champ. Is he the guy that beat Haggerty? I feel like he might be. But yeah, that should be a good fight. I always like watching Nango Gayunga Dao fight. I'm pretty sure I got that pronunciation right. I remember practicing it one day. Like after the third time watching him fight, I'm like, I got to learn this guy's name. I sat there for like 5 minutes trying to pronounce it before I finally got it right. Guys, whatever questions you got, feel free to drop them. I'm going to skim through the rest of this card, and then we'll get back to the questions. Marat Gufarov versus Lowen Tainanes. Gaffarov, sorry. Marat Gaffarov. I feel like he was the champion. Is this featherweight? Team Makachkala. I guess he's a Dagestani fighter. Yep. This is a lightweight, 155. Okay, so maybe I'm thinking of a different fighter, but I know I've seen Gaffarov fight before. And then a bunch of other fighters that I don't know. Guys, I'm still learning the ONE FC roster because, I mean, first of all, it's kind of hard for people in the States to watch ONE FC fights because they're on like pretty early in the morning. At least the prelims. The prelims start really early. Sometimes they start at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I know I sound like I'm whining because I know that you guys in Europe that watch the UFC have to stay up very late into the night to watch those fights. And I definitely feel your pain on that because, yeah, I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch prelims of ONE FC. I'm sorry. But that's how you kind of learn everybody. You know, I, I, I'm horrible with names. Like when I meet somebody for the first time, I have to ask their name like 3 or 4 times. I always remember a face though. And that kind of translates when I'm watching sports and watching fights. And I'll know that I've seen a guy before because one, I'm pretty good with faces, and two, their fight style is kind of an expression of themselves. And every fighter fights just a little bit differently. So when you watch it long enough, you kind of start to recognize a fighter just by their movement, their techniques that they like to use. I forget who said this, but for some fighters, even you could just put a silhouette around them, just black out everything, and it's just a silhouette of them fighting. You can tell exactly who it is just by the way they're moving, because some fighters are so unique in their movement and their technique. So, yeah, it takes me a while to learn these fighters' names, but just by watching one fight from a guy, like I know I've seen that person before. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'll learn the ONE FC roster eventually. I've only been watching ONE FC for about 2 years now. So right around at the time that I started the Fight Dialogue, actually, is when I started watching ONE FC. But that's also when it kind of really started picking up because I remember when they first came around, they didn't have like a lot of dominant champions, so I wasn't too interested in watching them. But then they got Ben Askren. They got Martin Nguyen, Brandon Vera. It really surprised me that Brandon Vera went over there and did so well because he was getting thrashed in the UFC for a while. I'm pretty sure that the ONE FC is kind of lax with their, drug testing. So maybe that's why Brandon Vera is doing a little bit better. In any case, Aldrich, hello, my friend. Do you believe Paul Craig is the dark horse in 205? Honestly, I do not. I love Paul Craig. He's a really good fighter. I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got excellent submissions off of his back. He's got heavy hands and good ground and pound when he gets on top, but I don't know, man. His chin is suspect, and yeah, I don't know. Like, he seems to lose the majority of every fight. Even the fights that he wins, he goes through a period of like complete annihilation at the hands of whoever he's fighting. And in many ways, that's one of the more endearing things about him. That's what makes him exciting to watch because you never know, he might pull a rabbit out of the hat at the end of the fight. But yeah, I don't think that I'm not excited about him in the sense that I'm excited about like Chimaev or somebody like that, in terms of like overall skill. Another one from Al. Who should Michael Chandler face in his debut, Justin or Dan Hooker? Man, I think a fight between him and Justin Gaethje would be fucking bonkers, man. He had those amazing, incredible fights with Eddie Alvarez, and I think that fight would be so similar to that. It would just be a fucking crazy war. And I really don't know who wins that. But Dan Hooker would be incredible as well. Dan Hooker needs a win, and a win over Michael Chandler would be huge for Dan Hooker. Peter Skavir. Most exciting matchup for the rest of 2020. Oh my god, the pressure. Most exciting matchup for the rest of the year. I don't know, man. If they announced, oh no, wait, the rest of 2020. I thought you meant like, I don't know why I thought you meant 2021. Most exciting matchup for the rest of 2020. There's not many. How many are left? Let me go back. Let me go look at the events. I want to answer this question intelligently. And I'm not off to a good start. Hermanson versus Holland, December 5th. Junior Dos Santos versus Cyril Gahn, December 12th. Edwards Chimaev, December 19th. Holloway Cater, that's next year. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, technically 4 more events because the event that's taking place tonight before the end of the year. And I think Brandon Moreno versus, who the hell is he fighting? Versus Davison Figueiredo just got added to the December 12th card. Probably Chimaev Edwards, honestly. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Jeff Neal, though. That's a really good one. That whole card's incredible. I can't believe that's a fight night. Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. That card is crazy. Yeah, fight night, December 19th. So yeah, I think that is the number one thing going on right now before the end of 2020. Guys, in the comments here in the chat, drop what you think was the best fight of 2020. I was thinking about that to myself the other day. I was like, even though 2020 sucked balls, there was a ton of exciting fights that took place during this whole thing. So, yeah. Who do you guys think was the best fight of 2020? For me, it's between Joanna and Zhang or Poirier versus Hooker. Because, and I'm leaning more towards Joanna versus Zhang because that fight was so close. It was so back and forth, and it was non-fucking stop. Those chicks have had so much energy and so much output during that fight. It was incredible to watch. And just the damage that Weili Zhang did to Joanna. And it was really, I don't want to say it was Weili Zhang's coming out party because I think people, obviously started paying attention to her when she knocked out Andrade and won the championship belt. That's when everybody was kind of like, what? What? She knocked out Jessica Andrade. And then people started paying attention to her. But I think some people probably even wrote that off as a fluke because it was so fast and so violent. Maybe they thought that Andrade deserved a rematch or whatever the case may be. But going into that fight against Joanna was the most experienced, toughest, most talented fighter that Weili Zhang had ever fought. Far and above the talent of Jessica Andrade. No offense to Jessica Andrade, but on paper, Joanna is just leagues ahead of her. And she went in there, and we had 25 minutes to study her and what she would do against this crazy dominant former champ. And she absolutely just beat the crap out of her. Made her head swell up like an alien. And that's why it was more of a coming out party for Weili Zhang. And if it wasn't for that fight, I don't think we'd be nearly as excited about the next Weili Zhang fight, And it was an amazing show of heart and toughness by Joanna to hang in there for all 5 rounds, even though she was getting her own shots in. Absolutely. Like, she had a lot of great moments in that fight. But to take and sustain the amount of damage that she did and still meet the final bell was an incredible accomplishment, and just to put on a show like she did. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards that as the best fight of 2020. But I also really want to make note of Poirier versus Hooker, because Poirier versus Hooker was also very back and forth, very violent. It was just a bloody fight. And the thing about it that's different than the Joanna fight, the Joanna versus Zhang fight, is that it had all elements of mixed martial arts in it. And if you want to introduce a friend to the sport of MMA, that's one of the best fights to show them, because it's exciting, it's back and forth, and it shows all the things that make MMA unique. You know, the punching, the kicking, the elbows, the knees, the takedowns, the takedown defense, the ground transitions, and not just any ground transitions, like really like exciting ones, like sweeps, back and forth sweeps, back takes. There was a guillotine choke in there a couple times. Just a really, really thorough blend of mixed martial arts techniques were displayed in that fight. So that's why I also like that as the best fight of 2020. One of the two best UFC fights, at least. I'm trying to think of Bellator fights, because Bellator came back before ONE FC did, and of course, the UFC was doing events all throughout the pandemic for the most part. Got some more questions here. Jose Perez, what martial arts do you consider most effective, taking into account different fighting organizations? Lots of people say wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai, BJJ. Yeah, I've kind of alluded to that a little bit on this show before. And I don't want to sound too biased, because I am a jiu-jitsu guy. Jiu-jitsu is my base. So instead of saying, jiu-jitsu is the best, I'm going to say that the arts that are the most liberal are the best martial arts for anything, for MMA, self-defense, anything. If the more rules you kind of put on something, the more used to fighters get. They get used to the fact that they don't have to worry about that one thing that's not allowed in their sport. Judo is an incredible sport. It's an incredible sport. It's an incredible martial art. But you're not allowed to grab the legs in judo. You know what I mean? So you could have incredible takedown defense in judo and then get picked up and slammed by a nobody that just knows a few wrestling takedowns, you know? And that could happen to like a high-level judoka. Wrestling is very good, and there's a lot of great fighters who have wrestling as their base. But you realize that if they went into MMA with just wrestling, they would get thrashed. Wrestling with a combination of certain things is one of the best things to have. But if, gun to your head, you had to learn two things, one striking art, one grappling art, I would pick Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it's pretty much like anything goes. So if you're constantly having to defend against anything, because anything goes, then your defense becomes very good, and therefore your offense starts to come pretty good, because you're fighting other people that have incredible defense. Is one way that I look at it. Muay Thai, you're allowed to use the clinch, you're allowed to use knees, you're allowed to use elbows. Muay Thai is one of the most liberal art forms out there. So that's why I think the less rules there are in a certain sport or martial art, the better off you are, and I think you should definitely learn those types of techniques. Excuse me. My mouth is getting dry. All right. Jose Perez, once again. How do you study fights and how do you learn the things you know about fighting? Well, I mean, I fight myself. I don't fight professionally, but I train, is what I should say. I've been training for the past 10 years. I started jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and Muay Thai about 10 years ago. I started for kickboxing, but then fell in love with the jiu-jitsu aspect of it. I had a couple injuries around like 2014, 2015 that I had to work through. And I didn't do a lot of martial arts during that time. But I got surgery on my neck and fixed that up. So since then, I've been training pretty consistently. Just got back into boxing and Muay Thai not too long ago. So that's where I learned most of the stuff. And I've been watching MMA for even longer than that. So I mean, just from watching MMA, you do learn things. Now, that's not to say like, oh, if you watch high level MMA for 5 years, you can just go out and beat people up. That's not what I'm saying, but you do learn. You learn the positions by watching it. You learn. There's a lot of things that you can learn just from watching MMA. And then when you combine that with a hands-on practical training, you can get pretty good at fighting. And I'm definitely, I mean, in my opinion, I'm kind of a scrub. I'm really not that good. Like, I'm one of the highest ranked guys in terms of jiu-jitsu at my school. But when I go into competitions, and I don't do many competitions, I do all right. You know, like I don't place. I've only placed first once. I've gotten third a couple times, second once, I think, and then all the other times, like I just didn't place. So I'm not like I'm not like a high level brown belt or fighter or anything like that. But I definitely know enough about fighting to at least analyze it and be able to tell when I'm looking at a high level fighter. Francesco, do you find yourself comfortable fighting off your back when you're in a bad position, such as side control, north-south, or even worse, full mount? Comfortable is not the word I would use. You should never be comfortable from those positions. You should never camp out in those positions. You should never not feel a sense of urgency from those positions, especially in an MMA fight. Because if you're in those positions, you're likely open to being struck in the face. And when you're in that zone, you got to get out of that zone as quickly as possible. Now, am I confident that I know how to defend myself in those positions? Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I know a lot of stuff from those positions. And in fact, I am a guard player for the most part. So I fight off my back from my guard all the time and get a lot of submissions there. That's the benefit of having long legs. Oh, shit. Sorry. Had to text one of my coworkers. All right. Let's get to some more questions. Zaid Hatham says hi. Well, hello there. Louisile says, here's a shout out from South Africa. Well, hello to you from Pennsylvania in the United States. What part of South Africa? I'm trying to think of some places in South Africa. I know there's a city called Johannesburg, and I know there's another city called Cape Town. Beyond that, I don't really know. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man. South Africa. Here it's a nice place. Which defense was, this is from the same guy, by the way, which defense was best between the two champs, Izzy and Figueiredo? Which defense was best? Like their title defense? I definitely think Adesanya's defense was was more interesting because, I mean, Alex Perez is a tough guy, but he isn't like notoriously scary like Paulo Costa is. Paulo Costa is an undefeated or was an undefeated berserker with the physique of a Greek statue and was just running through everybody and beat the crap out of one of the most feared people at middleweight, Yoel Romero. So when he barely even landed anything on Adesanya and then just got flattened, that was extremely impressive. Francesco says MMA is the best combat sport of all because it's the most complete. To me personally, it's the best sport in general. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, sir. Before I discovered MMA, I watched a lot of hockey, and I know hockey's pretty big internationally. So is soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. But when you discover MMA, and then you try to go back to hockey or football or a sport like that, it becomes more difficult to watch. Like, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy watching hockey, but I'm not invested in it like I used to be. It's so easy to get invested into an MMA fight because it's such a primal instinct of mankind to fight, you know, and to cheer for people when they fight. And then when you go back to watching a sport where all they're doing is throwing a ball around or shooting a puck or something like that, it's incredible and it takes great skill. But there's not as much at stake. The danger of personal harm is not at stake like it is in a fight. So that's why, yeah, MMA is one of the best sports out there. Louiselle says Blumfontein. I'm not familiar with it, but it sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a German name. Francesco says, how much did you eat for Thanksgiving? Yes, Thanksgiving was 2 days ago. I ate a lot. Not as much as I would have liked, though. There were so many leftovers. I'm still eating the leftovers, of course, but not as much as I'd like, but probably more than I should have because I like to really overindulge when it comes to food. But when you got a fast metabolism, baby, you can do whatever you want. MMA Boxing 365. What is up, my Irish brethren? How are you, my friend? Good to have you in the live chat. Go check out this guy's channel, Boxing MMA 365. Very knowledgeable. His videos aren't exactly like mine. They're great to listen to. And, you know, when you're on your way to work, you can kind of listen to him talk about the fight cards. Very knowledgeable of boxing and MMA. Go check out his channel. Ahmed Mohammed says, what is your prediction for Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones? Man, that fight's tonight, isn't it? Whew. Well, it's got some weird stuff going on too, right? Like, there's no knockouts allowed. I heard that. Is that possible? How do you not knock somebody out if you're punching them full force? I mean, if you catch them the right way, like, you can't, like, not knock them out. Who do I have? I have Tyson. He looks scary. Training, man. He looked real scary. Roy Jones looked good, but not as good as Tyson. Tyson looks to be in better shape. But Tyson's also been out longer than Roy Jones. Roy Jones' last fight wasn't too long ago. So it should be interesting. All right, I'm going to get to just a few more questions here, guys. Make sure you like the video if you haven't already. And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, guys. Best fight of 2020. Come on now. Don't make me beg. I gave you my two answers. Let me know what you think was the best fight of 2020. So, yeah, while you guys are thinking about that, let's answer some more questions. Francesco, just the fact that UFC asked Cody Garbrandt to come down to flyweight to fight Figueiredo makes you realize how, unfortunately, overlooked and kind of dead weight the flyweight division is. At the moment, I would agree with you. It's not a very broad landscape in terms of contenders, but every division kind of goes through that cycle at some point. Every division gets dry. Even the lightweight division, the premier division of the UFC, when it was first introduced to the UFC, it wasn't that big of a deal. In fact, they got rid of it for a period of time. So, and there was arguably more fighters at 155 during that time because the UFC didn't have those lower weight classes. So those 145ers, 135ers, they were bulking up to make 155. So you even had more contenders to choose from at 155. Not to say that the UFC had signed them all, because the UFC's roster has only ever grown from what it was. But if they wanted to, they could have signed more easily. Easily. There was a ton of talent out there at 155 back then. So, yeah, they have a ton of options, or they had a ton of options for 155, and every division sort of goes through that cycle. So the flyweight division is going through that cycle, and it seems like it's going through it a bit longer than most, just because it's one of those weight classes that's a little bit far to the extreme in terms of the size requirements in order to fight at 125. I mean, these dudes are small. They are very small. You have the same issue at heavyweight, though. And heavyweight is probably going to go through that drought pretty quickly in the near future, because I think Stipe is close to retirement. I think he's got 1 or 2 fights left, maybe, and then once he retires, man, Daniel Cormier already retired. John Jones is supposedly coming to heavyweight. He might be the champion, and then he might do the same thing at heavyweight that he did when he was at 205 and just hold the belt and just beat the shit out of everybody and make all the contenders look like crap. So, yeah, it's dead weight for the moment, but I think they should hang on to it, and it'll become better someday. Louiselle says, what makes MMA so interesting is the fact that it's really personal and removes the mob mentality and instills accountability, which is something we would like to see with everyone. Yeah. And also, I mean, when you think about fighting, it is something that it just translates to every culture. Every culture out there has some type of fighter, warrior thing, okay? And two people on the complete opposite ends of the globe with two completely different cultures can still enjoy watching a fight. It's just one of those things that translates over very well. Jose Perez, what would you recommend for someone in early 20s that does not have a lot of martial arts experience but wants to compete? Do you think someone can make it big even if they start in their early 20s? Yeah, dude, absolutely. I didn't start jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai until I was 19 years old. So that's only a few years removed from you. And yeah, I'm not even out of my 20s yet, and I still, I don't want to say like, yeah, I could definitely go compete and kick everybody's ass, but I know enough right now to where I could go into a regional MMA promotion, train my ass off. Okay, scratch that, reverse the order. I would train my ass off, then go into one of these like smaller regional MMA promotions and do somewhat well, I think. I don't want to give myself too much credit, but I think I'd win at least a few fights. So if you just, stick with that and you build off of that, yeah, you could definitely get into the upper echelon of the UFC. I mean, look at Yoel Romero, Daniel Cormier. They started their MMA careers quite late. Yeah, they had prior training to that, but there's a lot of guys that start in their 20s. I think Alexander Volkanovski, he started training MMA pretty late. He was always athletic and he did rugby and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, you can start. Okay, Francesco, and it's very unfortunate if we think of people like Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo. Yeah, it is unfortunate that the 125 division isn't given enough attention, especially when it produces guys like that. You know what I mean? But it'll get there. I'm confident. What made you start working out in MMA in the beginning? Asks Ahmed. Just watching UFC. To be honest with you, I just discovered UFC and I wanted to do that. And then after the first class, I spoke about this a little bit on the last show. But after I tried my first class, I was like, I need to do this. I can't imagine going the rest of my life not knowing how to fight whatsoever, because I got beat up pretty bad on my first day. So I thought to myself, like, I need to learn from this in some way. I need to build off of this lesson. And yeah, the rest is history. I just kept training and training and training. And even when I got injured and I had stopped training for quite some time, like when I got injured pretty badly and I was out of work for some time, like regular work, my day job, because this ain't my day job. The way I put food on the table for my family, I was out of work for a month because I had injured myself while training in jiu-jitsu. I got put in a Darce choke, and then the guy kind of like neck cranked me really bad, and I herniated a disc. And it was horrible because I couldn't even work. I was in so much pain. It's like the worst pain I've ever been through. And I thought to myself, like, maybe I should quit doing this, because if it's affecting like my money and me being a provider for my family, then it's probably not worth it. And I bet if I just stop doing it for a while, I'll forget about it anyway, and it'll be like it never happened. And a year went by of me still being in pain. And during that year, I could not stop thinking about training in martial arts. I couldn't stop doing it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So it motivated me to get back into it. And if you can remain in love with something, even though it physically maimed you and put you out of commission for a year, I think you're kind of destined to do that thing, honestly. So that's why I've stuck with it for as long as I have. Ahmed says, if Khabib continues in the UFC, would you be interested seeing him versus GSP or a Conor McGregor rematch? Nope. I don't like either of those fights. I want the Tony fight. I really don't like either of those fights. I'm sorry. I've given breakdowns for how I think each fight would go, but I want that Tony fight, damn it. Francesco, got a hot one for you. Oh boy, can hardly wait. What did you think of Donald Trump's work as the U.S. president? Are you happy with Joe Biden now? Who did you favor in the elections? Politics. Ooh, one of the cardinal sins of what to discuss on my channel. No, that's all right. I don't mind. This isn't Ask Me Anything after all. I'll be honest with you. I don't like Trump. There are some things that he does well. I think that the U.S. should be a little bit more isolationist than we have been in the past. I think that sometimes we get in other people's business a little bit too much, and it's not good for our economy domestically in the long run, I don't think. I think all it really does, going out and getting in other people's business is it either makes other countries dependent upon us, or it makes other countries upset with us. So I like the fact that Donald Trump kind of sort of wants to keep it more at home. But I don't like Biden either. If you know anything about the Democratic Party in the United States, you'll learn that it is very corrupt. It is just as corrupt as the Republican Party, if not more. And yeah, I think Biden is like the epitome of like that democratic corruption. I like some of his policies, just like I like some of Trump's policies, but I really don't like either one. I don't like either one. So I didn't favor either of them. I did not vote. I voted last year, but I did not vote this year. And I think the whole, I think the whole world is just going to shit politically, quite frankly. So I'm just trying to just keep my head down and just watch MMA. Boxing MMA 365. I don't think anything beats Joanna and Wiley, to be honest, bro. 25 minutes of war at the highest level of the elite of the elite. I can't remember a fight to top it. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about before. That Joanna versus Weili Zhang fight was so crazy, man. I cannot wait to see Weili Zhang fight again. I really can't. Like, I'm so fucking excited. Ahmed Mohammed, do you play PlayStation games? If yes, what are your favorite games? I played PlayStation 1 and 2 back in the day, when there was no Xbox. But when Xbox rolled around and Halo hit the stores, man, God, I love Halo. I love Halo. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And to this day, I've remained pretty loyal to the Xbox, but I do play a lot of cross-platform games. I thought about making another YouTube channel about gaming, but man, when you have a wife and kids and other YouTube channels and martial arts training that you're trying to fit into a busy around a busy work schedule, it's hard to play video games. I'm lucky if I play 3 hours of video games a week. So that's what's kind of stopped me from making a video game channel. But yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a question from Francesco. How tall are you and how much do you weigh? I am 6'2". So that's how many centimeters? Oh, let's see if I can convert this in my head after just being on Google. Metric system, channel the metric system. That's like 189 centimeters, maybe, maybe a little bit more. So I'm pretty tall. I'm on the tall side, but I weigh 176 pounds. I just weighed myself after jiu-jitsu this morning. So I'm pretty lanky, very skinny guy. The heaviest I ever got to was 194 when I was eating more and working out more. But I haven't done strength and conditioning for over 2 years because I'm a lazy piece of shit. And I've just been doing jiu-jitsu and, boxing. So I've lost a lot of weight in muscle, and somehow I've lost fat too. I don't know how that happened. So yeah, I'm 176 pounds. Don't ask me to convert that to the metric system. I don't know. I'm just a stupid American. So you're going to have to use Google for that. But yeah, I'm pretty tall, skinny guy. Boxing MMA 365. Politicians are scumbags. Amen, brother. Ahmed, what are your favorite UFC fights? Oh my God, there's too many to think of, but one that comes to mind is Shogun versus Henderson. That fight was incredible. Last two questions, guys. Francesco, Weili Zhang versus Amanda Nunes. How about that? Well, Amanda Nunes is probably better on the ground, and she's also a lot bigger than Weili Zhang. So yeah, like pound for pound, those girls are in the same picture, but like in all reality, if you put them up against each other, Amanda Nunes should win that fight easily. Excuse me. Jose Perez, I keep asking general questions about MMA. That's perfectly fine, my friend. But I like learning... something popped up on my screen. But I like learning others' point of view. What is the best base martial art if you had the chance to build a fighter? Build a fighter. The best base. Urgh. Just a single martial art. I would honestly say Muay Thai, because Muay Thai is one of those martial arts that, like I mentioned before, it's like one of the most liberal martial arts because there's not a lot of things that are against the rules. But I mean, Muay Thai fighters, they basically learn takedowns because they have a lot of trips and foot sweeps that they do. They basically learn how to Greco-Roman wrestle because of the upper body clinch work that they do. You got the striking, of course. You don't have the submissions of jiu-jitsu nor the positional knowledge, but there is just enough elements of grappling to where you could probably hold your own against a jiu-jitsu guy standing up. If the fight made it to the ground, then that's a different story. But yeah, Muay Thai fighters, they just know so much. And like I mentioned on the last show, when you look at Muay Thai versus Lethwei, where Lethwei has headbutts and bare knuckle and everything else, now you're looking at an even more liberal form of martial arts. And yeah, I think one of those, Muay Thai or Lethwei, would be the best base. Boxing MMA, gonna go, but hope all is well with the family. And if I don't see you before Christmas, have a good weekend. You as well, my friend. Jose Perez, what do you think of the BJJ school structure, where if you're brand new and you just are thrown in there learning 3 different techniques every day with no real curriculum? Yeah, it's one of the good things, but also one of the bad things about learning jiu-jitsu is that there's no curriculum. For me, it's never really bothered me too much because, number one, I was never really good at academia. I hate the entire structure of school. I hate going to school. I hate studying, homework, all that stuff. I always hated it growing up. It's just that way of learning I never liked it. I never liked learning that way. I'm a hands-on person. I like to do things. That's how I like to learn. I like to learn it by doing it, not by reading about it or taking tests on it. But if you have a school where, I mean, you're going to run into those 3 techniques. You're not going to get them perfect on the first day. So yeah, you don't get them on the first day, but you'll learn them multiple times, more than multiple times throughout your studies in the years that you're going to be doing jiu-jitsu in order to master it. Maybe that's part of why it takes so much longer to master Brazilian jiu-jitsu as compared to other arts, but I digress. I think if your instructor keeps it to 2 or 3 techniques per class, I think that is ideal, but anything more than that is just going to go right over your head. See, I was close. 188 centimeters and 80 kilos. Now I know. So when I go to the rest of the world, I can tell people I'm 188 centimeters and 80 kilos. Ahmed, why is Khabib undefeated in your opinion? Such a difficult question. He is undefeated because he never lets the fight take place where his opponents want it. It only ever takes place where he wants it to take place. His wrestling is incredible. And he has a unique style of wrestling that up until when he entered the UFC, nobody had seen it before, really. So that's like the main reason. Last question. Well, it's not a question, but Francesco says, well, you surely have a more harmonic build than me, at least. He says, I'm 5'8" and 190 pounds. But hey, man, if you just cut a little bit of weight and lean out and just and build a little bit of muscle, you'll be a pretty tanky tanky 170 pounder, you know. Why is my phone ringing? Leave me be. Sorry. Smoker Dog, do you think karate kickboxing style is better for MMA than the Muay Thai style? Honestly, no. No, I don't, because of the clinch work. Ahmed Mohammed, will you make striking grappling analysis videos soon for a UFC fighter? Yes, I will. Conor McGregor, how good is his striking, is coming right up. And I recorded that last night, and I will be editing it throughout the week. You should see it by the first week of December. So keep an eye out for that, guys. And then I'm going to try to make some Dustin Poirier videos, grappling and striking, before those guys fight. So that was my random live stream for the day, guys. I'm so happy that you guys joined me and made it a good one. Like I said, it's very random when I do these live chats because I wait for everybody to disappear from the house. That way it's nice and quiet and they're not hogging the internet or anything like that when I'm trying to stream. So I appreciate you guys coming in on short notice and talking with me. I hope you guys enjoy the fights tonight that are on, and hope you guys check out those ONE FC fights that take place earlier in December. And then we can talk about those next time. Guys, make sure you check out our Patreon. I talked a lot about me training today because you guys were asking me. If you guys are interested in my training and how I roll, how I fight, you can learn more about that on the Patreon, and it helps support the channel a great bit. If you guys go to the Patreon, I'll leave a link for that in the description. There's tons of videos of me competing, me rolling with Aldrich, and a bunch of other cool stuff. And like I said, it helps the channel out big time. Check out our merch and stay tuned for that Conor McGregor video coming soon, guys. All right, you guys enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you next time, guys. Thank you very much.